If you like realistic drawing and portraits, hair is definitely one of the most important topics for you, and you may have already noticed that it has its own particularities. But what makes hair different? Well, in this video I'm going to talk about how to draw realistic hair using this drawing here as an example. My name is Matheus Macedo and my goal is to show you all the secrets behind the art of realistic drawing. So if you're interested in this subject, subscribe to my channel because I'm going to show you everything I know about it. So let me tell you how I drew this realistic hair. Obviously, the first thing we need to prepare is the sketch, and I used a combination of the grid method with what I call the transfer method. I've added a lot of details to the sketch, but the most important thing is to bring in the masses of hair. You'll see that I prefer to focus on specific parts of the drawing and do them all the way through rather than working on the whole hair at once. I find that this gives me more focus, I work in a more concentrated way, and it also gives me a greater sense of progress. Once the sketch was done, I started working on the background. But why start with the background? Could I start with the hair itself? The answer is no. I have to start from the background because the hair strands are in the foreground, and if I do the background later, it's obvious that I will undo all those strands that I will have drawn so carefully. Also, there are many white hair strands here and I can only do them over the background using an eraser, a Posca pen or a white charcoal pencil. Speaking of charcoal, yes, this reference has a very dark background and I made it using charcoal powder. You have to start from the background, whether it's done with charcoal, graphite, colored pencil, pastel, whatever, okay? I'm speaking of drawing techniques. The background has the role of giving three-dimensionality to the composition, and soon I will show you the trick to making the subject, that is the person portrayed, stand out from this background and come to the front, closer to us. Now it's time to draw the hair strands. Some artists would make a gray layer base before drawing the strands, but this is not how I work. I always prefer to fill in the entire hair area only by drawing the strands. And why? Because that way I'm already creating the texture of the hair. So yes, drawing hair is basically texture drawing right from the beginning. I draw the hair strands starting from the darkest areas of the hair mass I'm focusing on. In this case, I'm doing it with a charcoal pencil because those areas are really dark. I do the dark spots and then I pull the charcoal powder into the lighter areas using the brush. I use the brush because it doesn't completely undo the hairs, it still leaves the texture of the lines in a way. Of course, there is some loss, but later I can go back and reinforce those hairs. Two tips to follow here when tracing the hair strands. First, keep your pencil sharp so that the lines are thin. If you're drawing hair with graphite, you can use a mechanical pencil. Another tip is that at first, you will focus more on the movement of the hair masses as a whole. It's not yet time to draw thinner strands that go in various directions, as we are still in the first layers of charcoal. So, the brush is what will bring the charcoal powder to the lighter areas and provide the base layer for the highlights. I use the Tombow eraser for the highlights, as I almost always do. Make sure the tip of the eraser is also sharpened. For this, I usually use a utility knife. Highlights are essential to render volume and three-dimensionality to the hair, and volume is basically contrast. The eraser is important because it is at the opposite pole to the charcoal on the value scale, and I work between the two extremes. In fact, I have a video just about value scale here on my channel where I go more in depth on the subject. The link is in the description. Now it is with the highlights that I will draw the white hair strands individually. At least that is what works for this reference, okay guys? This hair is basically drawn with the eraser after all. These are the highlights that make the figure stand out from the background. See, this is what is happening in the photograph. I am not an expert in lighting, but as far as I know, this is a studio shot, and the figure is being highlighted from the background by the lighting. I believe the photographer positioned a main light at 45 degrees in front of the subject, which creates a dramatic effect in the composition. However, in addition to this main source, a second one, weaker side light source was positioned, which will serve to detach the hair from the background. So that's what I'm reproducing in the drawing. In other words, observing your reference image is very important. Take a few minutes to study your reference image before drawing it. After the highlights, it's time to make the final adjustments. The eraser is a great tool, but it's not very precise even when sharpened. So to finish it up, I use the pencil to refine and better outline those white hairs. In this case, since the hair as a whole has very dark spots, I practically only use compressed charcoal pencils instead of graphite. To reach very dark values, I use charcoal, and to have precise lines, I use compressed charcoal or carbon pencils. By the way, I'll list some of the materials I used for this drawing in the description of this video. Then we can darken the areas between the white hairs since they are already done. I leave this for the end because compressed charcoal is very difficult to erase, so before the highlights, use these pencils sparingly. If you want to learn more about how to draw realistic hair using graphite, not charcoal but only graphite, then I recommend you check out the class I recorded on the subject. The link will be in the description below. I also have some graphite exercise done step by step with a very detailed explanation in the book I'm releasing now, Realistic Drawing for Beginners. I'm super excited about this book, and in the next videos I'll be talking about it. If you're interested, I will put the link in the description below. Speaking of this drawing again, I could also talk about how I drew this beard. However, I didn't want this video to be too long, so I'll be releasing next week a new video focused only on the beard of this drawing, okay? So if you're interested, subscribe to my channel so you won't miss it. Would you like to hear me talk about any other parts of this drawing? If so, let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I see you in the next one.